Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Another week, another Acolyte. We are on episode 3, Aftershow for Star Wars, The Acolyte, coming out each week on Disney Plus and on Tuesdays this time at 6 p.m. on PST, that is, which we are. So those of you elsewhere in the world, sometimes I feel a little bad because you got to wake up at like 3 in the morning just to catch your dose of Star Wars right away. So the internet doesn't spoil you the next morning. But here we are with another after show, and this is Star Wars Escape Pod. We've got Kirk, Kyle, Nick, and Dan all joining us in the Escape Pod this week. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
And it's certified fresh.
Are you ready?
I sense this is only a small part of a larger plan.
Star Wars The Acolyte. New episodes Tuesdays, only on Disney Plus.
All right, hello, and welcome back, Kirk.
Yo, it's good to be here.
Good to have you back, man. And we've got Dan on. Hello, sir.
Hello.
And welcome back, Nick.
Hey.
And we got Kyle.
How's it going, everybody?
What a good. Yeah, what a council of opinions we have tonight for such a interesting episode.
You could say that again.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like I've heard nothing but like heated discussion about this one from the internet. So I don't know about you guys, but hopefully the internet has not swayed your opinion whatsoever, because it's certainly nice to have some fresh takes. But yeah, here we are, just over a quarter way into the series, and along comes this episode. This one's called Destiny, directed by none other than someone just by the name of Kaganada, written by Jasmine Flournoy and Eileen Shim. This episode came out June 11th, 2024. I'm just going to read through the overview of the story, and then we could just dive right in. Osha and May play beneath a tree in the woods near their village. A young master soul spots them from a distance and follows them to their village. Osha and May live on Brendok with a coven of witches led by Mother Anicia. Anicia claims the twins have no father and were carried by another witch, Mother Coral. She teaches the children that the Force, or the Thread as she calls it, is misused by the Jedi. The coven holds a ceremony to induct the twins, which May is excited about, but Osha is not. Before Osha can be inducted, the ceremony is interrupted by a group of Jedi: Indara, Kelnaka, Torben, and Sol. The Jedi are concerned about the witches training children and claim the right to test the twins for their suitability to become Jedi. Anicia claims the children to purposely fail asks the children to purposely fail the test. May does, but Osha chooses to pass and tells Anicia she wants to become a Jedi. Angry that her sister wants to leave, May starts a fire and traps Osha in their room to burn in the flames. Sol helps Osha to safety. Before he can reach out and save both kids, May seemingly falls to her death. He takes Osha and they flee the growing fire. The rest of the coven are found dead throughout the village, and the Jedi take Osha to Coruscant, and Sol promises to train her as his Padawan. On Brendok, it is revealed that May has survived and is searching for her sister. So, initial thoughts. Maybe we can just go around and just kind of give off like one or two sentences. Like, what are your initial thoughts on this episode? Did you like it? Did you not? And then we can kind of break it down and then do Pablo Points of Putas after that. But Kirk, we'll start with you, man. What came to mind when you watched this episode? Like, what did you think?
Well, okay, where do I start? I'll keep my thoughts brief on this one. I'm struggling to find some things that I loved about this episode. I felt that it was a little bit unexpected to see what it was unexpected for me to see how early on we were going to see this flashback of the two twins in the show. So at least like that's kind of out of the way, which I'm at least glad with. But apart from that, I just felt like a lot of this backstory was completely off for me. I felt a lot of the opinions that this tribe of witches describing the Force, or at least their interpretation of the Force, was off, down to some of the choreography and writing decisions. But yeah, it's hard for me to put a pinpoint on this episode. Although I guess the one positive thing I did enjoy about it, two things at least, was I felt that a lot of the cinematography and stuff was quite nice. I liked especially a lot of the aerial shots of this new planet. And two, I always like seeing Sol on screen. I think he has a nice presence as a Jedi. I quite like that, and he has a pretty cool haircut as well. But yeah, apart from that, I'm still mixed feelings about this episode, and I almost kind of want to watch it again, type of thing. But anyway, that's a bit more than 2 sentences. But there you go.
A mixed bag. All right, Nick, what'd you think?
I don't know. I'd say I kind of liked it. One thing, I guess, I mean, something that kind of just, I don't know if that's, I don't know if this is have any relevance, but like on the Jedi ship, when they were taking Osha back, or when they were on their ship, everything seemed like kind of a bit more retro. Like they were actually, like it was actually 100 years ago, and their tech was like not quite, it seemed like everything was a little bit more older style. Just like the props and the backgrounds and stuff, which I think that might be what they were kind of going for a bit, because I guess Star Wars, even in canon, right, their tech does evolve over time, and this was a fairly far back, it's 100 years before like the prequels, I guess. But yeah, to do with the episode as a whole, I guess it was okay, but I didn't quite get Maze, like how she was so angry at those 4 Jedi for like coming in and trying to take her sister, because it was ultimately, she could have just let it happen, but she decided to, for some reason, like burn down the whole place and create this huge disaster. And she basically killed all of her people. Right. So and then she's mad at someone else for it. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit weird to me.
A mixed bag. Yeah. All right, Dan, what are your initial thoughts?
So I went into this episode hearing a bunch of flack on the internet about like how this is such a horrible episode and whatever, and like I found it not really that bad. Like I didn't hate the episode. I didn't see anything that was like, oh, this is going to ruin Star Wars. I just felt like stuff was just kind of annoying. Like the little kids were really annoying. Like when they're in that training session and they're just sitting there hitting each other back and forth. I was like, really? Like I could see it going for a little bit, but it just went on for way too long. And I found the child actors to be really annoying. I did like the stuff with like, I like the Coven didn't bother me. I thought it was cool seeing a different group interpret the Force as something else with the whole thread thing. And then I liked how they played up the Jedi, like indoctrinating children, and like how some people were against that because it takes them away from their family. That was interesting. I hated the musical scene. I was like, the song was just really felt out of place. Yeah. It was almost like Life Day bad. And
what a reference.
Wait, is this the initiation scene you're talking about?
Yeah. You're talking about the ritual?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and they're all singing about the power of one, the power, like, okay.
Oh, no.
They just kept drilling that into your head, the power of 2. And it's just like...
You're comparing that to like the Carrie Fisher song at the end of Life Day?
Almost. It's not quite that bad, but it's really close.
That's an amazing comparison. I never would have thought to compare it to the holiday special of all things, but...
I don't want singing songs with like, it's not the Star Wars I want.
Right.
Unless it's like the band in like Jabba's palace or something, or in
or the Gungans, right? Or the Gungans, right? The parade.
Let's not talk about the Gungans. And then
I know it's a button for you. Carry on.
I feel like the whole thing with May burning down everything, I feel like that's a red herring. I think there's something that goes on that we don't see, and we're gonna find out like in the next episode or something. It'll be from somebody else's perspective. That like obviously something happens where they think either the Jedi do it or they do it, or there's that scene earlier where the mother's in their building and she hears something and she like looks up and she's like. So I feel like whoever this main bad guy is that's manipulating May, like maybe he's hiding behind or she or they are hiding behind the scenes manipulating everything, and they cause whatever this thing is that kills everybody to happen. And May blames it on the Jedi, and Osha blames it on May, and it's really this other person behind the scenes pulling the strings.
Gotcha.
But we'll find out.
Yeah.
Didn't hate it, didn't love it.
Yeah, fair enough. Sweet. Kyle, what about you, man? What's initial thoughts?
Yeah. So I got to be honest. I really didn't like the child actors. I'm not trying to knock on the actresses themselves. I just didn't like their acting. Like at one point when they're about to go and do the trials, and May looks over at Osha, and just the way that she had talked to her, I was just like, I wasn't believing it. You know what I mean? Like the same part where you were saying where they were fighting in the room. It just went on too long. So I didn't, but that's also direction from the director. So I didn't really like that part. I like the story. Like I like the storyline. I didn't like how they told it. Like I thought the cinematics of it were like I thought that the wide screen shots or like the wide angle shots, I thought those were great. But everything else it seemed cheap to me.
Yeah. Like
they just didn't put a lot of money into it. That stupid song thing was just dumb, and the power of one, the power of two, the power of many, like I really didn't get into it. I did like the fact of how they talked about the Force in a different way. That I liked. But I also kind of see it as, there's the balance to the Force. May is evil and Osha's good, right? So it's I see that being the balance brought into this. But I also don't understand what happened during this fight to make Torben freaking kill himself. A Jedi committing suicide? I don't understand that.
That's a really good question, and I definitely want to break that down in a little bit as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But other than that, I mean, I'm enjoying the show. I really am. I just didn't like that episode.
Yeah, that's fair. My initial thoughts were also a bit of a mixed bag. Like there were some interesting things about this episode, and at the same time, I also felt like I think the word that comes to mind, like what you say, Kyle, was just cheap. I feel like, and it's such a tricky thing to put because of course, like I don't want to knock anybody, like you say, and especially not like kid actors, because of course, with the horrific things that Jake Lloyd went through, it's a tough world out there on the internet. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this episode could have benefited better from perhaps more time directed towards those kids and the performances, because it is really tricky when you're working with kids because they can't be on set all day. They can only be there for a certain amount of time, and with time, I mean that's money, and with money you only have so much of it with a show like this, right? So it is a really tricky thing working with kids, and I think Obi-Wan Kenobi, certainly one of the upsides of that show, because you have a young Leia through the whole course of a show like that, and I feel like what we got out of it was actually, even though it's not an A+ show or anything, looking back on it, it does have its very positive moments with such a brilliant young actress playing Leia, who I guess they had a lot more time to devote to a show that had a kid on set at all times. They really planned for that. Whereas in this show, maybe it's a one-off episode that we're really getting this kind of story, and perhaps it just wasn't balanced, in the way that things should be for that situation. But yeah, it certainly could have benefited, I think, from tweaks to the writing and the directing of these kids. And but overall, I mean, yeah, it wasn't my favorite. The musical number was also a little iffy. I know Robin also felt a little strange, watching that whole ritualistic thing and like the chanting and everything like that. Like I think to anyone who's like watched Star Wars before, when you get sort of witches, it's normally sort of the Night Sister style stuff, and I think it's like, I don't know, at least in my head, like I just kind of accept it a little more. I hate to think of this as like an Agatha from the Marvel Cinematic Universe or something like that, but that's sort of what it reminded me of, because there wasn't really anything like tangible that like you could see them kind of wielding the Force a little bit, but it was also very kind of different. And but it's also interesting at the same time because it's a new coven that exists that we'd never heard of before, and it's different because it's 100 years ago and what are all these other things. But yeah, initially my thoughts were like mixed bag, but that kind of goes into my first point of breaking this whole episode down. Actually, that's the second thing. I'll start off with this thing, though. I have a hard time believing Sol and the other Jedi didn't know that planet wasn't populated. Why else would they be there? I don't know if you guys had any thoughts about that. There is definitely something weird to me that stands out about the fact that 4 Jedi are on this planet. Sol is in the woods, almost looks like he's looking for the kids, you know, like, and like Indara claims that they didn't know the planet was populated, but a lot of the ships and stuff have scanners which can get life readings, right? Like Luke Skywalker uses the scanner in his X-wing, and he's just a little starfighter, and he's able to tell how many life forms there are on Dagobah. So I don't know if any of you guys thought that was a little strange, but I thought that was really weird. And I wonder, again, like, this is a mystery show, so I don't want to like present my my questions as criticism, because obviously, you know, something in a future episode might, you know, make me look like an idiot. So like, perhaps this was a part of the plot, but I don't know if you guys had any thoughts about that. Maybe I'm just throwing it out to the room.
Yeah, I was about to say, was the tech invented yet? But yeah, because I remember in Survivor, when they went back in time, when he does that travel back in time and you meet that cool old robot and stuff like that, they had scanners on their ships then. So I don't know. Maybe it's you know, maybe the Jedi are playing a mind trick, you know, or something, like they're just trying to play a card.
Right.
I think that was sort of just a lie, though, because she was like, "Oh, I might not be remembering it correctly, but she was like, oh yeah, we didn't know this planet was inhabited. We just stumbled upon here." And then she's like, "Oh well, like we've seen you before. You're like looking for us." And then she like almost immediately admits that she was lying about the first thing. And she's like, "Oh yeah, we're actually here to get the kids."
Yeah.
Like, I think
there was something weird about that, right? Like it's like because Sol saw their kids earlier, right? Like it almost made it seem like, well, that's definitely the reason that they showed up to the ritual. But why they're on the planet in the first place, I wonder. I wonder if that was a chance run-in that we were seeing at the very start of the episode, or if it was planned and they are lying about the fact that they were landing on the planet for other purposes. Perhaps there was other reasons that they were going there, and then it would just happen to be like a chance run-in, right? Like that's still not confirmed yet, but yeah, I wonder if they were lying about the fact that they didn't know the planet was populated.
It seemed like the Jedi were stalking them for a long time, though. That's what I got out of it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Maybe they were looking to see how they use the Force. You know, are they using it good? Are they using it bad? And they're using it in the gray, so that's not cool with us either.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory too. I mean, the fact that these Jedi are policing like other, like denominations and how they're using the Force, and the way that the mother, I think, puts it in the episode is there is only power, and who has the right to use it, or something she says, right? And like it was a very interesting, well written line, which I was like, oh, that seems quite accurate. The way that the Jedi look at the Force and their dogmatic views by the time we get around to the prequels.
Do you guys think like the Jedi came off, in all honesty, when they walked into that room and they start talking to the mother? Didn't they kind of come off imperialistic? Like they lied. They seemed forceful. Like, we have the right to do this. We're the leaders of the galaxy right now. We have the right to do this. And it's like, you have the right to go in and take a child, or talk to them the way you did. I found the Jedi to be very not so Jedi.
Yeah.
And I also what cliches with me as well, or clashes with me, sorry, is that like in the Phantom Menace, Anakin is brought by Qui-Gon and they refuse to train him then, and these kids seem to be Anakin's age as well. So why are these Jedi trying to grab kids, if they are so, that are already quite old? And also there's the whole point of Jedi you can't be a Jedi or train to be a Jedi if you have too much attachment and too much hate and resentment in your past. Like I think Mace Windu and Yoda were quite against training Anakin in the end, given that he lost his the upbringing he's had. But like, yeah, this like Sol just brings back I keep forgetting which one's which, May or Osha. After like her whole village is just being decimated and she's too old. So I really don't understand like what the angle of the Jedi is. And I think to what you were saying before, Josh, like rather than these are questions I have at the moment because we haven't got the full picture of the show. But right now, given it's a mystery, like I don't quite understand what their angle and what their deal is. And also Sol like just passing over his loaded lightsaber to this child who's never seen one before. Like what if she just looked into the eye of the eye of the lightsaber and ignited it and boom. like
that
what was his angle with that?
Like that Luke Skywalker meme.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's so I actually, that was one of my notes, is like we have to keep in mind that this is 100 years before the Phantom Menace. And like when Nick was talking about the technology earlier, like that was basically what I said last week when we were talking about the premiere as well, if you remember that, Kirk, and how technology I just
came up with a theory,
incrementally sort of changes, and even the lightsabers are like more basic and all that stuff. So it's a long time, and lots can change in that time still. So, you know, perhaps we're seeing the reason why the Jedi no longer take students that of the age of Anakin in episode 1.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah, perhaps the events of unfolding in this show will be the reason that it's part of the rules, I guess. Not part of the code, but part of the stipulation that, you know, he is too old, right? Like that mentality that we no longer take kids that are old enough that they have attachments to people. Perhaps this is the reason why, right?
Yeah, potentially. Someone said they had a theory.
That was Kyle.
That was literally my theory, and he just said it. Yeah.
Right.
It might just be a bit of like an ethical thing for them, but like, oh, we seem like it seems like the Jedi aren't doing harm because it's like, oh, let's only take in like babies and infants, and so that they can just teach them from the ground up instead of having to break you and then teach you like the way of the Jedi. You can just start fresh, and it's easier that way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So
well, here's a question I had too. They tested the girls, right? Like, you know how they test for the midichlorians or whatever they're called? You know, they tested the girls. Wouldn't they have known right there? Oh, they got a lot of them.
Yeah.
They must be Force users.
Yeah, they would have. And I think that's also something to consider when looking at this whole thing, is that they don't just straight up kidnap kids and run away, right? Like the way that they put it, which would be funny if they did, but the way that they put it is not really, but you know, I'm just joking. What would be interesting, what's interesting is that they are heroes, right? No, like what would be interesting is if they ran these tests and they like, because they know, right? Like they're Jedi, they run the blood samples, they do the testing, all that stuff. They knew that May was lying her way through the test, right? Like, but they also knew that she was the one who had been inducted, you know, based on her tattoo and everything on her head, right? Like, and she clearly didn't want to be part of the Jedi, and they sensed that, they knew that. And whereas Osha had her doubts, and I think Sol, the first time that he meets Osha, he had the feeling that she wanted to go with them, right? So when she goes and lies through the test, like that's why they put up a bit of a you know, that they make a statement about the fact that she's lying, and they call her out on it because they want her to be sure, you know, to tell the truth and to be honest to herself and to others. Is this really what you want? And because she's old enough, you know, she's able to make her own decision, much like Anakin was. Anakin didn't have to go with Qui-Gon, but he wanted to, and he says to his mom, like, but I want to go. And he at that young age, it's almost such a sad thing to see, because, you know, for someone to be so young to make a decision to leave their family forever would be insanely hard to make, right? So I think that's the only reason why but with May and her testing, which they skipped over in the episode completely, I think it's because we all know how that went. You know, we're all aware of the fact that May isn't a Jedi because we've seen her in the show and her doing what she's doing. But we also know that she didn't want to be. She was very adamant that she didn't want to be. So they probably let that slide. And I think, like, being the Jedi, it's like they have the right to test these kids, like what they said to the witches. Like they said, like, you know, you can't deny the Jedi's right to test, but like they're not going to straight up like run away with the kids kind of thing. Like I think it's definitely something.
But why do the Jedi have the right to test?
I think it's a galactic, like at this time in the galaxy, the Republic has expanded outwards from the core into the outer rim, and they're trying to expand into the outer rim, and they have been for quite some time, for the last like couple hundred years or so. And they finally sort of reach planets like this and establish a presence there, and which is more curious as to like, okay, did they go there to do that, or did they go there for another reason? Again, another question, but really, I think like the fact remains, these witches are aware that the Jedi have this right. So it's like a general sort of galactic wide thing. People know who the Jedi are throughout the whole galaxy, and if they don't know them or seen them personally, they've heard the stories. And at this point,
sounds imperialistic to me.
well, at this point in time, it's the golden age of the Jedi. That's the whole point, right? That's the whole point of the High Republic. Is the High Republic is called the High Republic because it is the golden age of the Jedi. So this is their time to shine. This is the time in which
I get that it's their time to shine, but it's just the way that this movie or the way that this show is coming out to me is for the first time, and I hate to say this, but the Jedis are kind of dicks.
Yeah, totally. And you're not wrong about that. This whole show is literally written from the villain's point of view. I don't know if you guys remember some of the press that happened kind of prior to this show being made a long time ago. This was like maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, when Leslie Headland was talking about the Acolyte to some sources. It's out there. I think it's even on the Wikipedia. Like at one point they did say that this was going to be the first Star Wars show from a point of view of a villain's perspective. And I think by that phrasing, they probably meant May in general. But I think that's also reflective through other parts of the series, right? Like how we see the Coven of Witches sort of having their moment, and then all of a sudden the Jedi are the ones to burst in and ruin the party, right? And it's interesting because we're usually watching it from the other side of the camera, I guess, or the other side of the story narrative, where we're watching the Jedi charge in and do something, and because it's what they're fighting for, and this and that and whatever. But this time it's reversed, and we're seeing like how these people respond to, they're just living their way of life, and all of a sudden these people come in from across the galaxy saying, hey, we have the right to test your kids, and if they choose to, they can come with us, kind of thing. So like it is kind of imperialistic, you know what I mean? Like you're not wrong there. I think there's something intentionally driven about that decision in the story.
I didn't think of it like that, but that really does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So
to hear it, this is probably May's story then.
Oh yeah. 100%. This is May's story. Yeah. I mean, and like, I don't know if you look at the banner on the show, no, it's not Osha's story at all. Like if you look at the banner for the show on Disney Plus, like May is front and center. Like she is the Acolyte, right? I assume, but that's what they're kind of leading us to believe. The Thread and the Coven, these witches introduced a new term that they refer to the Force, which is the Thread. And I don't know, did you guys have any ideas on how the Force is perceived by these people? I know, these Star Wars projects have been inspired to create more sort of minor Force sort of cults, I guess, due to some of the material in the High Republic books and some moments in the EU as well. But what did you guys like about seeing that moment where they're training and fighting each other like in a sort of formal fashion? And there was this crazy old witch lady that showed up. Like she was legit. Like her character shows up and I was like, whoa, like now it's kind of getting good, because I loved her character design. She looked so kind of old but also creepy at the same time. You know what I mean? Like we only saw her for like one.
The old alien witch.
Yeah. We only saw her for like one shot, but I was like, oh wow, like that's cool. Like that made it so much more heavy of a scene, you like the old wise one. I thought it was like the mother, but it turns out there's someone, an elder, and I was like, okay, now it's a party. I don't know. Any opinions on that scene?
Yeah, I liked her.
Yeah,
I did like her, and I I kind of saw her as being the actual leader, or like the grandmother. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Hey Dan, what did you think of the creation of life by the Force when that came up? Like, what came to your head?
I was gonna actually mention that. I don't know. Like, I didn't like it in Phantom Menace with Anakin Anakin being born that way, and I don't know what to think about this. Like, yeah, I'm just, like, I guess I need more info. Like, how did they do it? Like,
right.
And why? Like, where are they going with it? Is it just to say like we don't need men to create life, like because we're all women, and like
I think behind the curtain, yeah, I don't think you're wrong there. I think like behind the scenes there was probably some underlying message there, but I think for within the Star Wars universe, there's definitely a nod of the head to Anakin's what's the word? Conception, is it?
Conception, yeah, conception. Yeah. But stepping back with this conversation here, they so Osha and May's mother, okay, I've forgotten their names already. Like the one that looks more human than the other one.
Anasia is the mother, and then Dathomiri, I think it's Dathomiri.
It's like
Korra, yeah, Dathomiri, yeah. Okay, so I'm watching these two. They seem like they're in a relationship of some kind. Like they're the two caretakers or parents of these two kids. That's at least how I see it. One's a little bit more strict on the others, and the other one's a bit more caring, being the non-Dathomirian looking one. But then they get into this argument. Like she's like, I raised them or something, and then the other one says, yeah, but I created them. And then they talk about how the Force created. So like who created these things? I'm just like I'm just getting confused with what direction they're trying to take here. Like obviously there is no father. All right, we'll establish that, and whatever their reasons are for that, or underlying messaging, whatever. Moving past all of that, I still don't think what I watched on screen gave me a definitive answer of how like these two children were made. And it seems like the characters in the show are also arguing with each other with who's responsible for making these children as well. I don't know, at least with Shmi there was it sounded like, because Shmi wasn't a night sister or a witch or anything, it seemed like it almost kind of just would have been like a miracle that the Force like properly conjured up something, no matter whether or not you like that. But yeah, like there seems like to be some conflict between these two parents as who's responsible for making these children, despite them articulating that the Force supposedly made them on its own, or the thread did. So what is it?
Yeah,
that's my question.
Well, don't they when they're talking about that, don't they say that there's something like, oh well, like we created them or whatever, and then one of them says like, oh, we don't want the Jedi to find out how they were created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did say that,
and I think that's because I think they were able to. I mean, I guess maybe they experimented with the Force a bunch of different ways, and like eventually something worked, and then it was some spell, or right?
Yeah.
That's what I got out of it. One of their witch spells like finally worked.
Remember too that they said that no children have been, our coven hasn't been able to do this ritual for so long because there's been no children, and then the celebration of life or whatever. So I don't know. Yeah, like that to me really threw me off, because dude, Annie's supposed to be the one, right? And now it's just Force babies all over the place.
Yeah,
maybe they conjured them by song.
Saying them to life.
I missed that. What did he say?
Yeah. They conjured them
by song.
Yeah. So I think the one thing to keep in mind, because like if I think too deeply about it, like I've always really loved the story of Anakin Skywalker. He's basically like, it's like a twisted tale of the Christ child sort of idea, right? Like I
was gonna say baby Jesus.
Yeah, like he is the prophesized chosen one, right? Like he's the prophesized. That's what makes him the prophesized chosen one, and that's why Qui-Gon has a whole moment of reflection when he finds out that he doesn't have a father, that the Force has literally brought him to this planet and in the middle of nowhere. And this is a man who is very very spiritualized by following the Force. Like that's Qui-Gon's character, right? So, he believes that it was the will of the Force that brought them to Tatooine, that all of the events that took place prior to them landing on that planet, he believes that it was the will of the Force that he met Anakin Skywalker. And the fact that Anakin had a dream that he was a Jedi and he wants to go with him, and he just wholeheartedly believes, along with the fact that he's got this insane midichlorian count, that he just believes this guy is going to save us all. Like he is the chosen one. He is the one in the stories. He's the one in the prophecies. And And it's important to remember that only Qui-Gon is like, he's one of the very few Jedi who even care about these prophecies anymore. He's like not obsessed the way that Sifo Dyas was, but he is very intimately connected to some of these prophecies because Sifo Dyas was, because Dooku was, and all of these things are.
Hold on. If that's kind of the case, then wouldn't that prophecy have been written before 100 years, and wouldn't Soul have gone, holy shit, these kids have no father?
Yeah, 100%. And so I think,
and there's two of them, one's good, one's bad. Like, come on.
well, in that moment, I don't think it's quite obvious that one of them's bad and one of them's good, but you know, like that's definitely something to consider, that maybe Soul had a bit of a glimmer in him. I think when he met Osha, right? And I think it's pretty obvious that like the chosen one is perhaps, the theory is maybe I don't know, maybe it's made moot at the idea that the two of them exist kind of together, because I don't know if it like, I forget what the actual like prophecy says, but I believe it just refers to just one, right? So I don't, maybe he must have like had a moment of trigger there where it's like, oh hey, like maybe he connected to it somehow, right? But I mean, like, you know, regardless, like he doesn't know how these kids were conceived, right? And that's kind of the whole point. But yeah, it is kind of interesting to think that if he ever asked that question, you know, what would he think when he finds out the answer? And you know, it's if we were to take the words literally out of Sidious's mouth from episode 3 about Darth Plagueis the Wise, you know, which in the canon so far is still technically a legend, right? Like we are currently led to believe that this person may or may not have existed, right? But in the Legends continuity, the old EU, he did exist, and he was Sidious's master, and he was able to save people from death and bring them back to life. And he did conjure and play around with these other sides of the dark side, which essentially by liaison, the Force fought back and created Anakin Skywalker, you know, out of pure defense. And that's how it's written out in the book, which is no longer canon, keep in mind. But you know, it's worth kind of looking into if you're ever curious about reading a really good Star Wars book. I still think it's one of the best Star Wars books ever written. But yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, they're throwing it out there that this knowledge exists, right? So who knows? Like maybe there's a little more to it than that. Maybe there was some other aid, not just pure Force powers, you know, creating something from nothing. But if it did exist and that knowledge is out there, you know, how did Plagueis know about it? Like, did he know it was a thing because of these people, or because it was part of an ancient coven of witches that no longer exists by the time he comes around, or whatever, right? Like, we have no idea. So, you know, I don't want to close my mind off to the idea that this is a thing, but I've seen things online where people are like, oh, this ruins Anakin Skywalker and all these things, and I'm like, man, I don't want to go that far until this show is completely done. And once this show wraps up, then I think we can, you know, formulate a more thorough opinion on just if this is a good thing or a bad thing for Star Wars. But in general, you know, those are just my thoughts, like throwing out there. I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on this, Nick?
Oh, he's muted.
Oh, he's muted.
He was too stunned to speak.
Oh, sorry about that.
He's intaking all the info.
Yes. Just the way like the twins were born and all that.
Yeah, just
and
that,
how it's
like all
close
this
to Anakin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because I guess what you guys were saying, and then like the thing with Anakin is like, oh well, like Anakin's mom is like there was no father and all that, and that was kind of a story there. They took that from like the Bible, or like the Jesus, like, oh, there was the Virgin Mary and she wasn't like there was just a kid. And I think they kind of took that from that. But I think this situation maybe it's a little bit different, because in that sense, maybe in Anakin's sense, maybe the Force did just like give him like to his mom, and like the Force like made him. But I think in this sense, it's almost a bit. It's sort of like a dark magic, and they sort of mangled their way into creating life, and it's not very
it's unnatural.
True. Like exactly, that's the word. It's that's what I got out of it, because I think it almost seems like they knew how to do it.
Yeah, or they'd been attempting for quite some time or something.
Yeah. That's kind of what I think. It's different from Anakin in that sense, where they tried really hard to do it and it worked.
It's interesting. So the fire, May started it. What really happened, right? Like, do you guys have any theories as
I gotta
to
be honest, that fire burned real fast for a place that's made out of stone.
stone and bricks?
Yeah, that's what I thought straight away.
I was like, wow, the stone's on fire.
Yeah,
that's what I thought too. It was weird. Like she drops the thing, and then like there's a small fire, and then like 5 seconds later, the whole mountain is burning. Like it happened way too fast. I think. Actually,
do you know what I thought? But just before that happened, when because at the start of the show, OSHA's like to May. Oh, Josh, you're gonna hate me for this, but I keep forgetting which one's which. But anyway,
May's the evil
they're
one.
like to each other. Oh, I love you. May's like to OSHA. May's like, oh, I love you. And then just before the fire scene, she's like, I want to kill you. And then the thing that popped into my head straight away was that scene from Anchorman where Ron Burgundy's like, well, that escalated quickly. Like, I don't know. Like, that's the first thing that came into my head.
So many people.
That really flipped quickly.
No, like, I'm sure someone's got a super cut of that already where they've like stitched those two quotes like back to back and like, tacked it on something else or whatever. Or like, so,
Do you feel like that this whole sequence with the fire and then what happened afterwards, I feel like there's a lot left. There has to be something left on the cutting room floor there. Like they must have
I think
reduced the length of it because
I think that's intentional.
I just feel like it's just missing a whole scene.
Well,
or maybe
that's just it. Like, that's totally
so odd.
No, I think you're on point there, and I think that's like I really hope that's intentional because there is something super weird about this entire sequence, right? Like she is like, I don't know, like she's not the nicest of the two of them. She's as we saw in earlier, she's the more power hungry one, but despite the sibling rivalry, like it's weird that she would just want to straight up kill her sister, right? And I think there's just something.
Why does she hate the Jedi so much?
Yeah, that's the thing.
I don't like. Yeah. I feel like I just don't know what her motivation is, and I feel like this whole episode, because this is an episode out of 8, and unless there's 6, no, there's 8 episodes, I think.
Yeah, I think there's 8. Yeah.
I just like why? Okay, she doesn't like the Jedi, and she wants to stay with her family. That's kind of what I got, but there was just no inclination to why this kid had such a crazy reaction. She felt betrayed by her sister wanting to go and live with the Jedi and stuff, but I didn't feel any of that emotion being conveyed across. I feel like there was just something's just missing. Like something was missing, and if we get to episode 8 and this was it, like that's all we're shown, I'm gonna be a tad worried.
Here's the other thing to throw out there is May didn't know that OSHA had survived, right? So she, like OSHA, thinks that her sister is dead up until the point that OSHA figures it out that May is the one behind all these murders. It's a known fact that May didn't realize that OSHA was alive either when Soul confronts her and tells her that. And then they come face to face at the very end of episode 2, and she is like shocked to see her. And OSHA is the one to pull the trigger, who I don't know if she purposely missed or if she was just quivering and missed anyways, but her stun blast didn't get her, and then May drives off on the speeder and to live another day or whatever. But yeah, there was definitely something odd about that whole evening, like the whole fire, everything like that. The girl who wanted to kill her sister is not the same girl who is like looking for her sister and perhaps going after the Jedi in revenge for whatever happened, thinking that maybe they're the ones to blame. And that's the whole disconnect for me, because the reason why she would want to kill these Jedi is probably because her sister is dead, right? But she's the one who did it. So that's the weird thing. That's the weirdest part about all of this. Unless one of you guys can
how would she not know? Hold on. How would she not know that her sister, like this part I don't understand. How does she not know that her sister lived? She fell all the way to the bottom of the pit and somehow lived.
Well, she probably got
sister go past her.
She probably got knocked unconscious on the way down. I think she probably got knocked unconscious somehow and then woke up and she was somehow alive or somebody saved her. But we see her at the end of the episode alone in the woods looking for her sister. So I think that the fall, something broke her fall, and then she woke up and the fire was over and she realized that her sister was gone. So I think that she thought that the Jedi are somehow obviously responsible and it's all their fault, and that's kind of what's going through through her mind. So I don't really know like how that's related to her wanting to kill her own sister in the first place. That's the weirdest part to me. But then also the second weird part is when Sol is taking Osha through the village back to their ship, we see sort of the bodies all over the place, and none of like, it doesn't look like they're burned. Like we didn't really, it's not like we saw smoke coming off of them like Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen, right? Like it was really weird.
Charred.
Yeah. And so also in to stack onto that, on the ship we see Torben's scar. Now when we saw old Torben, 16 years later Torben, the one that drank the poison and killed himself, Torben, that guy has got gray hair, you know, he's like been living the worst time of his life on the Barash Vow. He's got like a scar that we can see over his eye. In the background of this scene at the very end, when you're seeing Sol sort of, talking to Osha on the ship, you can see Torben in the background, and the scar is fresh, like it's bloodied. And I think there's just a lot more to this event, and that the real mystery of the series isn't necessarily who's the one killing Jedi, like what the trailer led us to believe, but it's really about the night of this fire on Brendok. Like who killed the Coven, you know, who gave Torben that scar, what gave him that scar, what sent Kelnaka to like the freaking edge of the galaxy to like the woods where he's living in like it looks like he's living in exile or something. And you know, also ultimately what led Torben into the Barash Vow, that he was feeling so guilty that he killed himself. Like that is the most un-Jedi-like thing to do. Yeah, what's your theory?
That's exactly what I thought. It was like no Jedi's gonna kill themselves.
Right.
They would like that I don't believe that. I don't believe in that. I know that this is what happened in the show, but that's not a Jedi.
Yeah, something more happened.
My theory might explain this, Kyle. Okay, so what if May, right? She's got dark side-esque witch powers, and just as Osha was packing her things, May like decided to push her powers and manipulate the Jedi, just like that we saw in that opening scene where the Jedi first came into their village and Torben got controlled by one of the witches. What if May put that onto the 3 Jedi that weren't there, not including Sol? The Jedi ran around and assassinated and killed everybody, and then she came back, set fire to the thing, and everything else is just in flames. And May feels guilty for doing that, but technically the Jedi killed all the villagers, and that's why Torben has a shame of guilt, because he still did those actions, but he wasn't in control, and etc. 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 I don't know. Maybe that could be it. I'm not sure. That's a theory.
I still got to roll with what I'm saying, though. That's a great theory.
I can't see the Jedi killing these people, and I can't see the Jedi saying what. I agree with what you're saying as well. So I don't know. I feel like some mind control thing is the only way I can explain it, unless they did just die by the fire, and by the end of this show they don't explain anything else, and we're all just like, okay, what just happened?
Yeah, we're all just pissed.
Yeah, like that to me, when that happened, it was like this. I got to be honest, it threw me, like, I don't know, it's 100 years ago too, but it threw me out so far. I was like, this isn't normal. Like there's something really like the mystery is there. I'm really excited to see how the mystery unfolds, but at the same time I'm going, they better come out with some really good thing for this one.
Yeah,
fire suppression system they need.
Yeah,
always in motion is the future. So let's give this guy some Pablo points or poodoos. Pablo points or poodoos is the rating system on the podcast. 3 Pablo poodoos is the worst of the worst of the worst. And then moving up from there, we got 2 Pablo poodoos, and then 1 Pablo poodoo, and then a bendu. A bendu is a 50% score. And we got Pablo points. 1 Pablo point is good. 2 Pablo points is great. 3 Pablo points is the best that it can possibly be. So maybe Dan, shall we start with you? What would you give this episode?
I really like Sol, so because of him, I'm giving it a 0.5 Pablo.
Awesome. 0.5 Pablo points from Dan. Kirk, what about you, man?
For me, Sol is one of the only things I like about this episode, despite him giving a lightsaber to a child. And because of that, I think I'm going to have to set my own little record here and give this episode 2 poodoo points.
2 poodoos. Ooh, all right. Interesting.
I'm going spicy on this one. Going spicy. But, could change after the season's done.
Gotcha. All right, Nick, you're up. What do you got?
Okay, I think I'm gonna give it 1 poodoo, but because that's based off of like how, I mean, I guess part of it is like the acting. I don't think it was too good, especially with the kids, but also like how the whole fire thing was a bit weird. I'm giving it a poodoo, but in the hopes that this episode had to be a poodoo, and then we'll get some home run 3-pointer in another episode that explains everything.
So at the end of the show, when everything is all explained, you know, would you retract your 1 Pablo poodoo and give it something else instead?
Yeah, that's the hope, is that it's bad, but people just think it's bad because not everything has been explained yet.
I like that. All right, great. Kyle, what about you? What about you, man? What does this get?
This is the first time I'm doing this too, but two poodoo, man.
Two poodoos. Whew, man, we got some heaters here.
Yeah, I didn't like a lot of the acting. I thought it was cheap. There's just so much stuff that was just weird with it. And I mean, maybe they're going to explain a lot of stuff later on, but I'm going just by this episode. I just didn't like the episode. Yeah, it's continuing the story, but I just didn't like the episode.
Fair enough.
Actually, I'm going to give 2 poodoos as well. Sorry,
wow.
I retract my thing. I'm giving 2 instead of 1, but it was not because of like that reason, but because of what, as Kyle was saying, a lot of the character interactions felt kind of cheesy and hard to watch at times.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Awesome. I think, I mean, I was gonna go with 1.5 poodoos, but in the assumption that things don't get explained in the way that we're hoping, or at least if there is any sort of loophole or weirdness by the time that the show is over that still doesn't quite add up as to what happened in this episode and what we saw tonight. I'm going to give it 2 Pablo poodoos, but for now I'm leaving it at 1.5. So, hopefully that makes sense. But anyways, okay, cool.
Did we get everyone's rating?
I think, did we?
Are we still missing a rating?
No, that's Dan, Kyle, Kirk, myself, and Nick. All right.
Oh, yeah. No, we got everyone. Okay.
We got everybody. Yeah.
I forgot what Dan gave it.
Oh, Dan, you gave it a 1 point. Did you give
Actually,
it a 1?
I want to lower it. I'm going to do a 2. I'm going to do my first Bendu.
Bendu. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think
Bendu, there you go.
I think, yeah, Dan, what did you
That's
give it before? It was 1 Pablo point, right? And then now it's a Bendu?
No, it was 0.5.
Oh, 0.5.
It was 0.5.
Right. Okay.
That's right. My bad.
I think it should be a little lower, so I'll go Bendu.
I gave the first 2 episodes 0.5. I think you did too, Kirk, right? 0.5 Pablo points.
Yeah, I think I gave it. I didn't know that we could give it a 0.5. So I think I gave it a 1 first, but then I retracted and gave it 0.5 since I got that permission.
Yeah.
From the Lord and Savior.
Actually, real quick.
I just thought the whole series had been over in like 2 seconds. Once he handed the child the lightsaber, and she literally pointed it at his head. I was like, "Oh, game over." All right, watch that go.
There goes Soul. The future's
Imagine if
rewritten.
they do it Star Wars What If.
Oh yeah.
What if Osha turned on the lightsaber?
Yeah.
I mean, her hand was so close to that button.
It's like handing a child a loaded gun.
Yeah, and they don't know where the trigger is. Where's the trigger? Which button do I push? What do I not push?
Real quick, Kyle and Nick and Dan, I guess you weren't on last week either. If you can give me your Pablo points of poodoos for the premiere, if you just lumped episode 1 and 2 together, like what would you give those 2 episodes? We can start with you, Dan.
I gave it a 1.
Okay, yeah. What about you, Kyle?
1 Pablo. Sorry.
1 Pablo point. Okay.
Well, I would have given the first episode a 2, but because I got to put them together, I'll do a 1.5 Pablo.
Okay. All right. Yeah. What about you, Nick?
Not the good ones.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I guess as both episodes combined, I guess I'd do a 1. I'm gonna do a Bendu.
Bendu. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I'm gonna do Bendu with 1 and 2 combined. It just nothing really stood out for me.
Interesting. All right. Well, here's hoping that the show sort of grabs us a little more in the future. I was kind of pinning that our conversation today would last an hour, and here we are at literally an hour. But it's great to have all of you guys on and having all those opinions, and keeps it fresh, and hopefully everyone out there listening got something from it as well, and lots of negativity surrounding the show. So we we can certainly share our dislikes and our likes and not be completely toxic about it. But as we have seen today,
It's always a good thing.
Always a good thing, yeah. But yeah, I'm always. I mean, ultimately, I think we all love Star Wars. We're all happy to see it back every week, and hoping for good stories down the road. So, yeah, thank you all for coming on, and hopefully we will see you all in the next one.
Until next time, you can catch me devouring donuts at Dexter's Diner.
Dexter's Diner, nice. See you there. All right, thank you so much to our audience for tuning in. Great ways to help us out is to leave 5 stars on Spotify and share this show with a friend. You can subscribe to the playlist that we've made on Spotify. You can tune in from any podcast app in the galaxy, Podcast Guru, Podbean, Amazon, you name it, Apple Podcasts, whatever it out there, YouTube. Go check out all the ways to reach us in the description below, as well as East Post Sticker Company. Use the promo to score yourself a Star Wars Escape Pod logo sticker. We'll see you in the next after show. May the Force be with you.